It was a dark, cold night when Emily left work and headed to the train station to catch the last train home. She worked at an advertising agency and was exhausted after a day full of meetings and tight deadlines. The only thing on her mind at that moment was to get home, take a hot shower, and get into bed for some well-deserved rest. The station clock showed almost midnight when the train arrived and the doors hissed open. Emily climbed aboard and found an empty seat in one of the carriages, relieved to see that the journey was smooth. Most of the passengers had already disembarked at the previous stops, and she was hoping to have some time alone to relax before getting home. Emily sat by the window and sighed in relief, watching the city lights recede as the train picked up speed. The feeling of being in motion was comforting, and she hoped the peaceful ride would help her relax after such a stressful day. As the train made its way along the dark tracks, Emily noticed that the carriage was strangely empty. She was the only passenger in that compartment at the time, but that didn't bother her. In fact, she enjoyed the tranquility that solitude provided. However, as time passed, Emily began to feel an uneasy feeling that she was being watched. She looked around but saw no one around. Still, the feeling persisted, as if someone was hiding in the shadows, silently watching her. Emily tried to push the thought away, convincing herself that she was just imagining things out of exhaustion. She knew she was in an empty carriage, and imagination could play tricks in such situations. However, as time passed, the feeling that something wasn't right only grew. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine and decided to get up to check the other cars. Perhaps the company of other passengers would help her feel more at ease. She walked down the train aisle and past other cars, but they were all equally empty. Emily began to feel increasingly uncomfortable, but was still determined to find an explanation for her uneasiness. When she finally returned to her original carriage and sat down again, she realized that the feeling of being watched had not disappeared. Emily looked to the opposite side of the carriage and noticed the presence of a man sitting there. He wore a dark overcoat that made him look like a shadow. His eyes were fixed on her, and he seemed not to care about the discomfort his presence caused. Emily felt a chill run down her spine when their eyes met. She didn't know who that man was or why he was looking at her that way. But one thing was clear. The feeling that something strange was happening on that night trip was becoming more and more intense. Emily was about to embark on a journey full of mystery and danger that would change her life forever. Emily couldn't look away from the mysterious man staring at her from the other side of the carriage. His dark overcoat and serious expression gave him a dark and enigmatic appearance. She tried to convince herself that it was just a coincidence, that the man had no bad intentions, but the uncomfortable feeling persisted. After a few minutes of uncomfortable staring, the man finally stood up and began walking towards Emily. Every step he took seemed to echo in the empty train corridor. "Good evening," he said in a soft but cold voice when he arrived at her side. Emily tried to remain calm and responded with a polite greeting, "Good evening." The man sat next to her, and the proximity made the situation even more uncomfortable. Emily could feel his presence, like a shadow looming over her. "My name is David," said the mysterious man, still with that penetrating look. "Emily," she replied, trying to hide her nervousness. David seemed satisfied with the answer and continued to stare at her. "You're an interesting person, Emily." His words left her perplexed. She couldn't understand why he was making those strange remarks. "What do you mean?" David tilted his head slightly, as if he were sizing her up. "I'm just observing people and their choices." The conversation was becoming increasingly unsettling, and Emily wished David would just leave her alone. She tried to turn her attention to the landscape that passed quickly outside the window, hoping he would give up talking. However, David didn't seem willing to give up. He continued to ask strange and disturbing questions. "Do you believe in destinies, Emily?" She was taken aback by the question, but cautiously replied. David nodded, as if you approve your answer. "And have you ever had the feeling that something important was about to happen in your life?" Emily started to feel even more uncomfortable. David's questions were intriguing and disturbing at the same time. "Sorry, I just want to relax during the trip," she said, looking out the window again, hoping he would get the hint. However, David didn't seem to give up. He continued to watch her as if he was waiting for something. Emily was increasingly anxious to get away from him and resume her journey in peace. As the train moved along the dark tracks, Emily couldn't help but think that something sinister was happening. David's presence and cryptic words disturbed her deeply, and she was determined to discover what was behind this strange and unsettling encounter. The story of the night train was just beginning, and Emily was about to be plunged into a mystery that would change her life forever. As the train moved through the dark night, Emily's uneasiness only increased. The mysterious man, David, continued to stare at her with piercing eyes, and his cryptic words echoed in her mind. She knew something strange was happening, but she couldn't understand what was behind the whole disturbing situation. The train was about to enter a remote part of the tracks, where the darkness outside was absolute. The dim light of the carriage was the only thing keeping her connected to reality. It was then that David broke the silence again, his soft, icy voice sending shivers down Emily's spine. "Careful, Emily. We're reaching a crucial point." Emily looked at him, confused and scared. "What do you mean?" David didn't respond. He just continued to watch her with a dark expression. At this moment, the train gave a sudden jerk and came to a complete stop. The lights inside the carriage flickered and went out, plunging them into total darkness. The sound of the wind outside became more audible, and the silence inside the train was almost deafening. Emily's heart started to beat faster, and she felt a knot of fear form in her stomach. She tried to find her cell phone in her bag, but realized it was out of battery. She was completely in the dark, both literally and figuratively. Emily took a deep breath, trying to remain calm, but her instinct told her that something very strange was happening. She looked at David, who was sitting next to her in the darkness. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice shaking. David didn't respond immediately, but after a moment, he said in a dark tone, "This is the crucial point, Emily. The point where you need to make a choice." His words echoed in Emily's mind. She was increasingly terrified, not understanding what he meant by choice. She felt like she was trapped in a situation that was beyond her control, and fear was consuming her. "Choice?" Emily asked, her voice almost cracking. "Choose what?" David smiled enigmatically, and his smile seemed like a glimpse of something much more sinister. "A simple choice, Emily. You can follow your path as you always have, or you can accept the fate the train has for you." David's words echoed in the emptiness of the carriage, and Emily felt like she was on the edge of a dark crossroads. She didn't know what to expect or what that choice entailed, but one thing was certain: her life was about to take a turn she never imagined. The story of the night train was nearing its conclusion, and Emily was about to face a challenge that would change her life forever. The train remained motionless in total darkness, and the tension inside the carriage was almost palpable. Emily felt her heart beating wildly in her chest. As David's words echoed in her mind, "You can follow your path as you always have, or you can accept the fate that the train has for you." The choice before her was dark and mysterious, and Emily had no idea what to expect. She looked at David, who still had that sinister smile on his lips, as if he knew something she didn't. "What do you mean by train destination?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. David didn't respond immediately, as if he was relishing the fear emanating from her. Finally, he replied, "The night train is special, Emily. It takes passengers to places where the world of the living and the world of the dead meet. It's a journey few get the chance to take." David's words left her even more perplexed and scared. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. It seemed like something out of a horror story, and Emily was trapped in the middle of it. "I don't understand," she said, trying to find some logic in the unusual situation in which she found herself. David continued his explanation, his eyes fixed on hers. "This train is a portal to the unknown. It can take you to places you never imagined, to experiences that are beyond human understanding. But the choice is yours, Emily. You can continue your life as you always have, ignoring this unique opportunity, or you can embark on this dark journey and unravel the mysteries that the night train holds." Emily was conflicted with herself. On the one hand, fear impelled her to reject the offer of David and move on with her normal life. On the other hand, there was a curiosity inside her, a desire to discover the unknown and explore what the night train had to offer. She looked at the window, which was still immersed in the darkness, as if she were staring into the abyss. She knew she was faced with a choice that would change her life forever, a choice that would take her to places most people never dream of visiting. After a long pause, Emily took her decision. She looked at David and said with determination, "I want to find out what the night train holds and uncover the mysteries it hides." David nodded, as if he had been waiting for that answer. His sinister smile widened, revealing a hint of satisfaction. "Very well, Emily. You made the right choice." The moment she pronounced her decision, the train began to shake and move again. The lights inside the carriage flickered and turned on, revealing a narrow, shadowy corridor in front of her. Emily knew that there was no turning back. She was committed to a journey that would take her to unexplored places and supernatural challenges. The destiny that the night train had in store for her was about to unfold, and Emily was ready to face the unknown with courage and determination. The last thing she saw before venturing down the dark hallway was David's smile, which now had a hint of triumph in it. The story of the night train would continue to unfold, taking Emily into a world of mysteries, secrets, and terror that would challenge her. Her understanding of reality. The night train moved through the night, taking Emily into the unknown, where the boundaries between the world of the living and the world of the dead would become increasingly blurred, and the train's dark secrets would be revealed.